Hi, this is Ambryn, and this is for Cullison assignment number 9, talking about the different things that we can pick up about the Taiwanese culture based on 5 examples of their music and of talking with people. So my first example is an interview that I had with a Taiwanese woman named Sherry Chen. She has lived in America for about the past 25 years, but actually has recently gotten the chance to go back to Taiwan. So she was somebody that I wanted to interview because I'm trying to look more into the Taiwanese worship culture and what different aspects of their culture influence how they worship, and specifically Christian worship. They have many different types of worship, which I think will also be interesting to look into. But yeah, so this was really helpful to talk to her, and she was really excited to share about her culture, and said that I was the first person who she's ever gotten to do an interview type like this, which I think shows that in general the Taiwanese people are very excited about their culture and proud of it. And so I was asking her some about the differences between Taiwanese churches and American church culture, and she said some really interesting things, but one that stuck out was that in a Taiwanese church, if somebody has a baby, for example, all of the families in the church will gather around to support the family that had the baby, and will take care of them for weeks, including meals and cleaning. Yeah, and in American churches that wouldn't happen, because what she was saying is that Americans tend to like privacy, and the Taiwanese people are very communal. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting. She also talked about how it related to the ancient Chinese medicine practices, where if somebody has just had a baby, then they can't touch cold water. So I think that also reveals how much of Taiwanese culture is drawn from Chinese culture and how closely intertwined they still are, even if they're becoming more separate. The second example that I wanted to talk about is a Nanguan music example. So something that is shown in this clip specifically, but I guess in Nanguan music in the whole, is that they have very different types of instruments. They use wooden instruments for the flutes, and I think this is because of the natural resources provided. But I also think that it shows what they value in music is not standardization, but is rather the ability to communicate a story. Because the music it's not trying to reach a climax, but it's rather trying to show the beauty of getting just through the end of the song. So the point of it kind of shows me that what they seek is not to get done, but rather to enjoy what they are doing. Yeah, which is very different than American culture. I also had another music example. This was a Baekwan music example, and this, to me, it shows the importance of celebration in this culture, because this type of music is used in celebration, and it's loud and it's all-consuming, and I think that's a very good description of how the Taiwanese people want their celebrations to be. It's not supposed to be something that you can miss, but it's supposed to be something that everyone is participating in and that is totally unavoidable. It was also interesting because this type of music is used for trying to communicate with the gods and ask them for protection. And I think that shows that, could show that they believe that they must make themselves bigger in order to communicate with God. And so kind of like the bettering of themselves in order to have better communication with a higher power. And I think that this concept is shown a lot, especially when we interviewed Jason and Eileen, and they were talking about how the Taiwanese people are very focused on improving throughout the generations, and the parents are always telling the children to improve themselves. So yeah, I think that the bettering of oneself is shown a lot in this type of music, because it's like you have to make yourself louder in order to be heard, or you have to make yourself better in order to achieve success. So yeah, I thought that was very interesting. I chose one example that was like a popular music that they have today, and it's a band called Fire X, who is a screamo rock band. So I don't listen to a lot of screamo usually, but I thought it was interesting because it shows very much how they have been influenced by Western music, but how they take the music that they're influenced by and give it their own personal twist. So what this shows about the culture is kind of also something else that Jason and Eileen were mentioning about the Taiwanese people. They look at the things that have worked for other countries and they take it for their own, and then they improve on it. So this was shown through the music, and that they used traditional like Western instruments like the electric guitar and the bass and the drums, and they also used like traditional like screamo voice. But what they did differently is they also added in their own unique instruments, and they also used Taiwanese lyrics. So yeah, I think that shows a lot about how they aren't afraid to take things from other cultures, but they're also not afraid to make things into their own. And then the final example that I had is a really interesting example of Christian worship in Taiwan. Yeah, so this song was written by a prisoner in one of the prisons. So it doesn't say why he was imprisoned, but I know there's a history of persecution of Christians in both Taiwan and in China. So something that I think that this song shows is that because it's at a concert, it's at a commemorative annual prison weekend, and it shows how the Taiwanese people do not stigmatize others for being in jail. In American culture, well, I'll say that's at least true amongst the Taiwanese Christians, from what I can gather. But in American culture, it seems like if somebody has gone to jail, then they're looked down upon for the rest of their lives, and there's not really any hope for them. So I just think it's interesting how this song shows that. And another interesting thing that I saw was that the people performing the music are wearing the same outfits. And to me, this showed the importance of uniformity in the culture, importance of not necessarily expressing themselves through their clothes, but more perhaps through their actions and through their music. So yeah, the video is getting kind of long, so I'll cut it off here, but those were some really interesting observations that I had from watching some videos and interviewing Sherry. Yeah, thank you so much.